All right, welcome once again, ladies. We are here, day 3 of the Money Revamp Bootcamp. Once again, thank you so much for spending your evenings with me. We're spending your evening with us. I'm really excited once again to get started, to get into today, because I know that it's going to be, I'm trusting that it's actually going to be a really encouraging a step today that will actually give you more confidence, that confidence that you've been looking for. I'm hopeful that by the end of today, you'll feel more confident that at least you're moving in the right direction when it comes to your money. I want to celebrate you. As I said, many people have a desire to get their finances in order, but few people do something about it. So I really just want to celebrate you and acknowledge the effort that you're putting into getting your money in order. And the thing about these things is that you may not notice a dramatic change overnight, but it's the little habits, the little things that you do over time that eventually will add up. And in a few months from now, you may not even recognize yourself for good reasons. So I just want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep staying consistent, keep staying committed, and you'll definitely see results over time. So just to review the promise that I'm making to you for the 7 days that we're together with this boot camp, the first one was to discover the one thing that's keeping you from feeling at peace with your finances. We spoke on that yesterday, and I explained that really for most of us, it's staying in the dark. It's not actually facing our finances and making up our minds to take a look at what's actually going on. We ended up yesterday with a homework of self-assessment. And that's just the first step in actually getting you to say, okay, at least a plan is coming together. Today, we're going to talk about what most women ignore, but will lead to feeling confident about their money. That's another promise that I'm making today, and we're actually going to tackle that this evening. The rest of the course, or the rest of the boot camp, we're going to talk about a practical approach to dealing with money-related stress. That's another promise I'm making to you. And finally, for those of us who live in Canada, we're going to be talking about the secrets to financial success as a professional woman leading to Canada. That will be happening on Sunday. Now, given the questions and the expectations that you have presented to me, that class will actually be a little bit longer than our 30 to 45 minutes that we've spent so far. So I want you to budget about 90 minutes. I hope that's not too much to ask, but budget about 90 minutes on Sunday as we talk through, because there will also be question and answer session. Okay, so I'll do my teaching. I'll talk through some of the secrets to success as for financial success as women living in Canada. And then there'll be also time for more elaborate discussion. Please come prepared with your questions, because I'm definitely prepared to answer them on Sunday's class. Once again, to introduce myself, if this is the first time, I know there's lots of familiar faces here, but if you're happening to catch this at a later date, I'm Yewande. I am the founder and CEO of Per Wealth Grows. I'm a medical doctor, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm also a financial literacy educator. And all that really means is I simplify, to the best of my ability, I simplify the language of money. I make financial principles accessible so that you are empowered not only to make more money, but to save, to invest, and really to live a life of fulfillment, what I call a wealthy life. We're not just talking about money here, we also talk about well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, and just generally feeling at peace, not only with your money, but in life in general. Now, to review the journey that we're going on together, on day 1, we designed our destination when it comes to our money, where it is ultimately that we want to end up. Yesterday, day 2, we did some exercises to pinpoint our present position when it comes to the pillars of financial well-being. And today we're going to take things a step further to actually outline our plan. So now that we know where we are, we're going to start formulating a plan that will eventually take us to where we want to be. And now to just talk a little bit more about that promise I made you, which is to highlight what most women ignore, but will lead to feeling more confident about their money. And I remember, so if you don't know, my background is in emergency medicine. So I trained and I worked as an emergency medicine physician for about 10 years of my medical career before switching to psychotherapy. And when I worked in the emergency, part of my role was to do what we call resuscitations. Resuscitations basically means someone has lost their pulse, meaning they're not breathing anymore, or their heart is not beating anymore. Essentially, this is someone that has lost their life, somebody that's dead, or someone who is on the verge of dying. And my role in that scenario would be to lead the team of nurses, the team of respiratory therapists, lab technicians, x-ray technicians, lead the team to the best of our ability, revive this person, to resuscitate this person. And usually this person is either coming in from, I've had patients who have come in from restaurants because they lost their pulse at a restaurant. I've had patients come in from matches, whether it's a hockey match or a soccer match, because they lost their pulse at a game. And the ambulance is wheeling them in. And usually before the ambulance brings them in, they give us a dispatch call and they say, okay, emergency department, we have a male who lost their pulse and we're bringing them over. During that 5 or 10 minutes, we have the opportunity to gather together in the special resuscitation room and prepare for the patient that's being brought in by the ambulance. And many times during that resuscitation, it's very easy for you to lose control as a leader. It's very easy for you to get overwhelmed because one person is setting up an IV pole, an intravenous pole to administer some saline. One person is setting up the machine. Another person is trying to set up to do some recording of documentation. Another person is coming in to set up the x-rays. And as a leader, it can be very, very easy to lose control of all the moving parts if you don't stay centered and keep your plan in mind and have a plan in mind. And this is the reason why we spend thousands of dollars going through training for resuscitation as doctors, because it's important for us to know the plan. The plan is really what's going to keep us feeling confident in that moment and say, okay, as soon as the patient comes in, we start with our ABCs. Those are some of the things that we learn when we learn about resuscitation. So you have a structure, you have a plan. You know that ultimately your goal is hopefully to get that patient's pulse back, to resuscitate the patient. That's your ultimate goal. But in order to get there, you go through your ABCs. And that always gave me reassurance, is that no matter what is brought to me, no matter what rolls in through the doors, I can go through my ABCs, I can go through my plan. And that always left me feeling confident, no matter what the situation was. So taking charge and having a plan is the one thing that most women ignore when it comes to their money. Actually, and that is the one thing that will leave them feeling confident. One of the modules that I teach in my course talks about being the boss of your money. And all that means is telling your money where to go and what to do when it gets there. So that's really essential. A take-home message that I want you to keep in mind is that if at any point you start to feel like you're losing calm, you're losing confidence about your money, remember that, okay, you need to go back to basics. What is the ABC plan? What is step 1, step 2, step 3? And usually that serves to then center you, to ground you, and to leave you feeling confident. So taking charge and having a plan. Now, I'm sure we've all had the situation. We're all busy women, high achieving women who have goals and plans, but from time to time, you might have a day off, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a long weekend, whatever it might be. And you know that feeling when you have a weekend coming up or a holiday coming up, and because you're a busy woman, you have all these things in mind that you want to get done. Maybe it's you want to organize your closet. Maybe it's because maybe there's some children's clothes that are piled up that you want to take out for donation. Maybe you want to declutter your kitchen. Maybe there's some paperwork that you want to catch up. And you're like, finally, this day off. Maybe you want to do your nails. Maybe you want to pamper yourself one way or the other. But in your mind, you have all these things that finally, this day off, you've been looking forward to it. It's finally here, and you can get to do all the things that you plan to do. How many of you have had the experience where the day off comes, you wake up, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and before you know it, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and that day has poof, it's disappeared. And all the things that you wanted to do, maybe you got half of one thing done, but everything else somehow didn't get done. I'm sure at some point in your lives, you've had that kind of experience. I know that I have. Yes. As Inikia says, yeah, it's gone. It's definitely gone. The problem is that many times when that happens, it's because we haven't actually made a plan. We haven't made a plan. We have these lofty goals that we've set, but we actually haven't made a plan for the day. We've just kept the goal in our minds. We haven't made a plan. There's a quote that says, a goal without a plan is just a wish. A goal without a plan is just a wish. You might as well just be wishing on a star, because if you haven't put pen to paper to make a plan, it's not going to happen. I love to make the connection between time and money. Just like money loves to be told where to go and what to do, time also loves to be budgeted. Time loves to be allocated, because if you don't allocate your time, it just slips through your fingers just the same as money does. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. And today we're actually going to be taking some time to outline the plan for our financial goals. Now, when it comes to having goals, one thing that I will say is big goals can seem very overwhelming. Yesterday, we spoke on avoidance and procrastination, and I explained that the reason why that happens is because sometimes that fear of failure, that fear of letting ourselves down, that fear of embarrassment can really keep us from moving forward, can really keep us from actually facing the task at hand, because it seems so big and so enormous and so overwhelming. Now, one trick is that when you have a big goal, it's important to break it down to step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Especially if the goal seems kind of vague, it's not really defined. It's important to really take it down, reduce it to different components, and work your way through those components. I always love to think about a race. Like if you are a runner, I'm not a runner. I've tried, it doesn't work. Unless you give me a treadmill, then I'm okay. But if you tell me to do a 10K run or marathon run, I'm not there yet. Maybe one day I'll be there, but I'm not there yet. But imagine that you're someone who loves to run, or maybe this is your first race and you're about to run 10 kilometers, right? And maybe you've trained, but this is your first time of actually being around other people who are excited, and there's a lot of buzz and excitement, and you're about to run this 10-kilometer race. Now, if this is your first time, or if this is going to be a stretch for you, and you're at the beginning of your race and you're already thinking, oh my goodness, 10 kilometers. I may have trained for this, but this is a real thing. How am I going to get through 10 kilometers? How in the world am I going to do 10 kilometers? And you're already thinking about that big, massive goal. Of course, if you're doing that at the beginning, unfortunately, you're setting yourself up for a very long and challenging race, right? A very long and challenging race. But if you take a step back, yes, you know you have your goal of 10 kilometers, but focusing on 1 kilometer at a time makes the task so much more doable. So you can say, yes, 10 kilometers is the goal, but right now, my challenge is to run the first 1 kilometer. And when you get to the end of the first kilometer, you say, okay, my challenge is to run the next kilometer and the next kilometer and the next kilometer. And towards the end, you might find that all you're focusing on is, okay, 1 foot in front of the other, just 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, step by step. Because the truth is, 1 step in front of the other is eventually going to get you to your 10K. 1 kilometer after the other is eventually going to get you to your 10K. There's no point looking at the big, big, big goal and feeling so overwhelmed to the point of procrastination when you could shrink it down to smaller components and put 1 foot in front of the other, break it down to smaller, manageable tasks and work your way through those tasks, because you'll eventually reach your goal. There's a very strange but true quote that says, the best way to eat an elephant is 1 bite at a time. I really hope nobody's eating elephants, but I think you get what I'm trying to say, is that as massive as that animal is, if you really want to consume an elephant, whether it takes you 100 years to do so, 1 bite at a time is the way to go. Same thing with goals, especially if they seem so overwhelming for us, taking it 1 step at a time. Now, I'm going to share my homework to expose myself a little bit. So we did homework yesterday, and I should clarify that this is only my results for the past, I would say, 1 or 2 months. This year has been up and down for me, with changing directions in my careers, moving up in my business and investing in my business. So there have been changes. There have been times, honestly, when my earning was probably like 4 and my spending was probably like 3. But I decided to focus on where I am right now. So over the past 2 months, this is where I stand right now. So earning, I gave myself a 6. Spending, I gave myself a 7. I've been able to really curb down my business investments. In the past, my spending was a big, big problem. Very similar to, I think it was, I can't remember who it was yesterday, who said that impulsive spending was a challenge, and it was a challenge for me too. So I was able to get over that, but then ended up investing in my business. And so spending became a problem during the beginning of the year, but now it's under control now. I say that all that to say that I am not perfect. When it comes to building habits, it's always a work in progress. And when there's a shift in your life circumstance, that can always also have a change or a demand in where you stand financially. So don't beat yourself up if you find that a year from now, things are shifting or things are changing or your score has adjusted. All this is really just an assessment that helps you then make a plan to move forward. So I just wanted to throw that out there to let you know that things are always changing, things are always dynamic, and this is why we constantly reevaluate ourselves. Saving is always automated, so I gave myself a 7 because I would definitely like to see that go up next year. Investing is an 8 because it's also automated, but of course, I would like to see that also go up some more next year. Protecting, I gave us a 9 because we have our planning in place, our will in place. I didn't give myself a 10 because I would like to reassess my insurance and probably switch providers, but that will probably happen next year. There's no rush for that. Communicating, I also gave myself a 6. The reason being that communicating with myself, tracking my expenses, reviewing my statements is something that I haven't done in a couple of months, and I really want to get back to that. Communicating with my spouse, we haven't sat down and really done our monthly, we try to check our net worth, maybe not monthly, but every 3 to 4 months. But we always like to check in with each other about our spending, about our saving, our investing, and that's also something that we haven't done in a couple of months. So I gave myself a 6 for that. But I wanted to share this with you so that I can demonstrate how to actually come up with a plan based on my own personal experience. And so for me, I decided to pick. So what I wanted to say here is when I look at this, I can see that my priorities here are earning and communicating. So this is how I would like for you to approach it. Where you have the scores that feel the lowest to you, or the area that feels the most pressing to you, I would recommend that you start there first. Because obviously, like I say, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We want to take things one step at a time. And in order to do that, it's important to focus on what the priority is at any given time. So for me, earning is the priority at this point in time, and I'll demonstrate how I would be coming up with a plan to bring my earning score up. So right now, my assessment is currently a 6. And the goal that I set, I want to be realistic. I know that it's not going to be a 10, but I want to get it at least between a 7 and an 8. So increase by 1 or 2 points. And I also encourage you to do the same, that when you are trying to come up with a plan, be realistic so that you don't set yourself up for disappointment. So what would feel good? What would be realistic? I would suggest an increase of 1 or 2 points, at least for this season, whether you review every 3 months or review every month is up to you. I would recommend every 3 months because that would give you enough time to come up with another plan and keep things going. But give yourself 3 months. In fact, we're going to be talking more about that tomorrow. But for now, I want you to focus on increasing your assessment by 1 or 2 points. And for me, what does that look like? I want to increase my earning. And in order to do that, I could see more patients. I would like to see more patients. Right now, I see patients Monday to Friday, but I work about 3/4 of the day on Thursday. Can I add more patients to my schedule on Thursday? Definitely, I can do that. And that will also increase my income over time. I could buy more dividend shares. So, or I want to buy more dividend shares. So this is basically me writing out all the things that I know that I can do that are realistic that would help me increase my earnings score from 6 to 8. So right now I have dividend shares and I earn some income from there. I could very easily funnel some money into my investments, add some more dividend shares, and that will give a return every few months as well. Now, I could offer paid classes on personal finance or just general well-being courses and one-on-one sessions. So this is now talking more business now. So not so much professionally, but now business. I could offer more classes and charge people to come to them. Of course, this is free. The class that's coming up on Sunday is free, but definitely that's something that I can do to inject more income into my earnings. Something that I want to do some more of is speaking specifically to organizations and corporations. I could update my LinkedIn. I've recently discovered LinkedIn over the past 3 months, and I'm really loving what's happening there. I've had people reach out to me for speaking engagements from LinkedIn, but I could really elevate my LinkedIn profile to position myself as a speaker. Someone who can come into organizations and host workshops and speaking services. I could also write a book. A book is something that's been on my mind for a really long time, for people who may not necessarily want to take courses, or people who may not necessarily want to come to classes like this, or people who may not necessarily want to do one-on-one sessions, but having some sort of book that they can purchase and that will help them go through the same material without necessarily coming to class. So these are some of the things that I've thought of when I did my assessment. I thought, you know what, in order to increase my income, these are definitely doable things that I can do. So when you go on to do your homework, which we'll talk about shortly, I want you to keep these kinds of ideas in mind of what you can do, whether it's for your earning or spending or investing, ideas of what you can do to move up your current score from whatever it might be up one or higher, to increase it by 1 or 2 points. So I'm going to give an example based on the suggestion or the question about impulsive spending. And so impulsive spending is something that I have also had challenges with, especially with Amazon. And I'm so thankful to God that I've been able to nip that in the bud, because it was a huge source of, will I say, feeling irresponsible, right? Nobody likes to feel irresponsible. And I just, whenever I would order packages and I wouldn't even open them for weeks at a time, that kind of behavior. So I'm thankful that that is behind me. Some of the things that I've been able to do to overcome impulsive spending is unsubscribing. There are certain people that I knew that once I got an email from, I would want to buy whatever it is they're selling. And I felt like, I've supported these people enough. I don't need any more of what it is they're offering. It's too much of a temptation. And so I unsubscribed. When I get Instagram and Facebook ads that come up on my feed, and there are things that are tempting, I just click the hide this ad button, right? I don't want to see it anymore. Don't even tempt me anymore. Or even certain profiles that show off things that I'm like, oh, I really wish that I had this, or this looks like it would be something good to buy or something good to add either to my home or what have you. I unfollow because it's too much of a temptation. The other thing that I've also done is I've opened a spending account, an account that's specifically dedicated to spending. And so what that would look like is when you get your income every month, you would have done some pre-work to establish how much you're going to be spending every month. And so from your income, based on information that you would have tracked 3 months ago, so over the past 3 months, so you would track your expenses from the past 3 months, you would determine what needs to be cut out of your expenses. Then you would come up with a number. Okay, this is how much I want to be spending per month. And then you would transfer that number from your income account into a spending account. And that would be where you spend from. So whether it's you're going to do your groceries, or whether you're going to do your nails, or whether you're going to purchase some food or go out with friends, it would all come out from that spending account. And once the money in that spending account is done, it is done, right? And it's important to know that this account should be from a bank that doesn't charge you fees, because there's no point in transferring money. They charge you a fee. Every time you spend, they charge you a fee. That's just eating into your money, right? So opening a no-fee spending account could be something that you would consider. Reviewing your expenses weekly, right? At least to start, at least until you get that impulsive spending under control. Reviewing weekly, because many times our spending is on autopilot. It's very habitual. For example, for me, when I used to work night shifts, it was such a habit for me to pass the A&W, which is a fast food store, right outside of my hospital. So as I'm leaving my night shift, I'm going to the A&W, I'm picking up a junior chicken or one of those chicken sandwiches, and then I'm eating the sandwich on my way home. It was almost like I was on autopilot. And the truth is that many of our habits, our spending habits, our money habits, they're on autopilot. And the only way you're going to really identify what those habits are is to see it in black and white, is to see it on paper. So reviewing your expenses weekly, at least at the beginning, as you're trying to get your spending under control, is something that you also need to consider. And then, of course, because many of us, one-click purchasers, having your credit card information on your phone is not setting you up for success. But so knowing that you can delete your credit card information, if there's something, a cute romper or a nice scarf that pops up on your Instagram, and you're tempted to buy it, it's by the time you think, oh, my wallet is upstairs before I pull out my card. And they said that we should delete these ads. I'm just going to delete the ad, right? And so these are just some examples of some of the things that you could do. So the idea is that you've done your assessment yesterday. You've seen the parts of your assessment that need work. Pick one area, maximum two. I would say just for tonight, only do one. All right, just to get a sense as to how this works. Pick one area and then write a list of things that you could do to improve the score from where it's at to +1 or 2 points ahead. So, as I said, this is the homework for tonight is what will it take? Asking yourself, what will it take to increase your present position score by 1 or 2 points? And then list all the tasks required to get you from where you are to where you would like to be. This is how we start to formulate the plan, because I know that when you look at your score, it might seem really overwhelming. Even now, you might think, okay, there's just so much for me to do. Where do I even start from? And this is where you start from. You start by eating this challenge 1 bite at a time. You start by running this race 1 kilometer at a time, 1 foot in front of the other. And how you do that is you start to brainstorm, okay, what are some of the things that I can do to increase my earning? What are some of the things that I can do to manage my spending? What are some of the things that I can do to optimize my saving? What are some of the things that I can do to really get my investments going? What are some of the things that I can do to get my protection, whether it's insurance or estate planning? What are some of the things that I need to do to get the ball rolling on that? What are some of the things that I need to do to get my communication up from where it is now to where it needs to be? For me, that will be the other thing that I want to work on. In addition to my earning, it'll also be my communication with myself, as well as with my husband, as I like to call him. So at the end of the day, so yeah, we're down to day 3 now. We're at the end of day 3 now. And at the end of the day, the idea is not to get overwhelmed. The idea is to start to take charge of your finances. As I said, this is one thing that's really going to make you feel like, yes, I'm getting things under control. You're getting that confidence when it comes to your money. Not just, tolerating the way things are right now, but actually coming up with a plan. And that plan, taking control and getting a plan, is really the key to confidence when it comes to your money. And so that's the end of day 3 for me. I want to open up to any questions right now. I wonder if there are any questions. Is there anything that wasn't clear or anything that you would like for me to clarify some more? Is the step-by-step approach, does it make sense? Is there something that you think that you can do between today and tomorrow? If not, do you have any questions about that? You can go ahead and unmute and let me know. Any questions? Okay, ladies, I want to just say thank you once again for showing up night in, night out. I know that this is not, for me over here, it's almost 10 o'clock. But somehow it's peaceful. This time of night is so peaceful because the kids are in bed and I'm just hanging out here with you. So, but I want to say thank you so much once again for showing up. And then tomorrow, we're going to continue on from this plan. So tonight, all I want you to do is just write down all the things that you think might be helpful in getting you from where you are to where you want to be. And then tomorrow, we'll continue to build on that, okay? Awesome. Irene says, thanks for this. It was so good. Thank you for sharing your own scores with us. It's my pleasure. Irene says, it helps with not judging myself too harshly. Wonderful. And at the end of the day, this is not a comparison game. So if you gave yourself 2s and 3s, that doesn't mean you're doing worse than me. Okay, I hope you understand that. Just because you gave yourself 2s and 3s, maybe I was being too soft on myself. So the whole idea is for you to have a benchmark to be able to then move up, right? To be able to then move up. So just because I gave myself 6s and 7s and all of that, I know the reason why I gave myself those numbers. You also know the reason why you gave yourself those numbers. The whole idea is for you to focus on your lane and not compare yourself to somebody else, okay? Adenike says, thank you for today. I'm thinking about saving or investing. Go ahead. Yeah, so decide on what you want to do, and we can talk more about how things are moving on tomorrow. Irene says, it helps with not judging myself too harshly. Yeah, don't judge yourself too harshly. Also, don't compare. Adenike says, is buying a house part of estate planning? That's a very good question. So buying a house technically is not part of estate planning, although having a house will definitely be taken into consideration when estate planning. Estate planning, I guess the term estate in there makes it sound like it has to do with property, which I guess it does, but it's not necessarily just real estate property. You don't have to own a home to do estate planning. Okay, you don't have to own a home to do estate planning. Estate planning essentially just means you own, whether it's a bank account, as long as you own even at minimum a bank account, right? Or if you have insurance. Estate planning basically means that in the event that we're all going to leave this earth at some point, and God willing, our lives are going to be very, very, very long. But when you do eventually leave this earth, estate planning basically means that you have outlined how you want your property to be allocated. You have sort of said, this is what I want to go to child A, this is what I want to go to child B, this is how I want my property divided, right? It keeps things divided according to how your wishes are. Otherwise, what happens is the government takes over and the government does whatever they want with it. Now, a thought that we don't like to think about is, God forbid, if something were to happen to us at a young age, right? The biggest gift that we can give our loved ones is actually putting these things in place such that they don't have to worry about it, such that they're not scrambling around at the last minute. Okay, what would this person have wanted? What would their wishes have been? Right? Many times we don't like to face the fact that, unfortunately, sad things happen, tragedies do happen. I know it's not something that we like to think about, but I guess working in the emergency department, I've just seen it too many times where things are just sort of left. You know, we don't think about these things ahead of time. The reason why we have insurance is to protect, and even if you don't work, even if you are someone who stays at home, as long as your role requires funds, as long as your role requires money, in the event that you're not able to fulfill that role, then you actually should have insurance. Because who's going to do the cooking? Who's going to do the cleaning? Who's going to do the watching of the kids? That might require a nanny or a babysitter or someone to step in, and that requires money. So to ease the burden on your loved ones, it's important to have some sort of replacement of the funds that you normally would have brought to your home, or a replacement for a financial replacement for the work that you do in your home. Okay. I'm thinking of ideas for investments. That's why I asked. Okay, yeah. So estate planning is basically just taking care, putting your house in order, right? For some people will say just having all the paperwork, the documentation, and that would involve a lawyer. So you would connect with a lawyer, and a lawyer will help you go through all the documentation and all the paperwork that's required to basically allocate your funds, allocate your assets, in the event that you're gone, and also speak to you about insurance, whether it's disability insurance, if in the event that you're not able to work, critical insurance in the event that you fall ill, or life insurance in the event that one day when you're not here, some of that money will eventually go to your family to take care of your family. And so is estate planning similar to a will? Exactly, yes. So estate planning is a will. So a will is part of estate planning. Exactly. Yes, Chika, thank you for that question. Any other questions? All right, ladies, if there are no other questions, thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. You're really welcome. This is my pleasure. This is my joy. Thank you once again for showing up. Should a single person get life insurance? So that's a good question. So it depends on whether you have dependents or not, Denisha. So, or if you have property or not, Denisha. So if you have, sorry, you're talking about insurance. So if you have dependents or not, that would determine whether you get insurance, life insurance. So if you're single and you have absolutely nobody who is tied to you or who is attached to you, believe it or not, or you have no debts, you have nothing that requires your existence to continue to fund, believe it or not, you might not need life insurance. In fact, there are many people who, once they get to a certain age and they don't have their mortgages taken care of, their kids are well set up and established, they don't have any debt, they have, each partner has enough to live off for the rest of their life, they decide, you know what, I don't need insurance. Because the reason why you have insurance is in case something were to happen, there's money to take care of the things that I'm no longer able to take care of because I'm no longer here, right? So if there's nobody that you need to take care of and nothing that you need to take care of, if you're no longer here, then you might not actually need insurance. So it really depends on what the status of your singlehood is. If you're single and there's other people in your life that serve as dependents, whether it's elderly parents that you might be responsible for, or other people in your family that you might be responsible for, then yes, it's a good idea to have life insurance. But if you have no debts, no mortgage, nobody that is dependent on you, then you might not actually need insurance. You might not need insurance. There are, if you live in Canada, Denisha, I know that you're here in Canada, but there are some websites that you can actually go to and input some information, and it'll tell you how much insurance you require. One of them is policyme.com. Policyme.com is one of them, and the other one is, I believe, policyadvisor.com. Policyadvisor.com. So those are two websites for anyone who's curious. You can just input some of the information. They'll ask you some questions, and they might even recommend some insurance packages for you. So if you're curious as to whether you need insurance or how much insurance you need, those are two websites that you can check to see, to be able to answer that question. Let me just double check. Yeah, policyadvisor.com and policyme.com. Yeah, so those are the two websites that you can check to have that, to get that information. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, ladies, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for participating. Do your homework. As usual, I'll put up the recording on the YouTube channel. I'll do a recap of today as well as the assignment, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. All right, ladies, bye.
Bye, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thank you. Sorry I came.
Bye.
It's okay. It's okay. The recording will be available. Bye.